Welcome back everyone. As you can see, it is now winter and we are working on a blast furnace. Its structure is made by an iron-plated brick chimney on top of a crucible. It also needs a constant flow of air provided by a bellows which we are going to automate, and our automation seems to be speaking a foreign language. As we could guess, our friend wanted some food and water. While he's digesting, we shall craft the last piece of the blast furnace, a tuya. We are going for the cheap one made out of bronze. But it appears that right now it is too cold and wet to start our forge. The snow is really cold and we should probably do some extreme activity to warm up. Like climbing a long ladder. And sweating while doing some extreme sports at -20 degrees during a night snowstorm. And landing inside a mob of mobs. That only made us have cold sweats, so let's do some manual labor to warm ourselves. After all of that work, we are ready to use our blast furnace. We throw in some charcoal, flux and ore. And we light it on. We then proceed into manually blowing in air. Until finally, the molten metal drops into the crucible and we can take it out with a mold. However, this appears to not be steel. It is pig iron which we have to hammer down into high carbon steel which we can then hammer into the so beloved steel. One ingot is an achievement but on its own is useless. Before moving on and doing more, let's fix our shelter. It did a good job for this winter but it's not suitable for a factory. And here you can see how nicely our new house is being built. It even has a bucket for collecting the snow inside it. And a kiln for making pottery stuff with no straw. We shall use it to increase the size of our blast furnace, which can now take twice as much materials. And we figured out how to wake up our foreign friend. With all of that steel, we can now make an anvil. And thus we reached a new tier of metalsmithing. Next we are going to craft a steam engine, so that we can finally start having some automation. The process is quite long and convoluted, so let's get started. By heating up our copper left over. Next we work it, make the double ingots, plates and finally cut out some strips, which we shall heat up again. Once we are ready for hammering them down into wires, we realize that the process is really complicated. Going on by trial and error is fun but it is now taking too much time. So we have to do the thing we hate the most, reading books about math and then do some homeworks. We first calculate how much the shift for the mandatory last hits will be, then we align the material to the wanted result and do the reverse shift. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Next we place our raw wires on a wire draw bench and squeeze them 4 times to have a nice looking wire. The next piece we need for our engine is going to take a lot of copper, so we melt down some more chunks with the help of our crucible. This craft is kinda complex, so I don't know how we could have done that without math. Now that we have a gear, all it's left is to make a piston, which is kinda easy and cheap compared to the rest of the stuff we made so far. And here we have our 2 steam engines. Then, after a long grind for some iron and steel, we made our first steam-powered machine, a rolling machine. Now we can fuel the engine and start making plates in a cheaper and faster way. How nice it is to sit here and look at it roll instead of bashing and hammer on an anvil. Now that we have more plates, we can increase the size of our blast furnace and start working on more machinery. Like a rock crusher. This machine will help us work rocks by crushing them. That way, we get twice as much ores per rock. It is also the only way I found for obtaining mercury. And, most importantly, We no longer have to use that annoying grindstone. Next we build a railcraft blast furnace, which will make iron in an easier way. Now, to keep going on with the main quest line, we need black steel, which is made by welding 2 ingots. One of the 2 is an alloy made out of steel. Since terrafirma alloys have a range of allowed alloying percentages, we are going to try to keep the steel amount as low as we can. We are going to do the same process for obtaining the 2 later game TFC metals, blue and red steel. Since we can't take choices, we are going to do both of them. The first thing we are using them for is anvils, 1 TFC and 1 GT. And we shall recycle the old anvil. Now, the gregtech anvil works in a way cooler way. We place the material we want to work on it, and we can split the stacks by clicking. And, when we do a recipe that reduces the amount of material, we get some scraps of the worked material. Now that we can work metals easier, we shall make a gregtech burning box. We have to be careful because it will set on fire nearby chests. The first thing we shall put on top of it will be a crucible. And, of course, we need somewhere to pour the molten stuff. Now, we have to be careful at what we do, since everything has a boiling point which we should not pass. And thus we are going to craft a thermometer. When cinnabar melts down, it turns into mercury, so let's throw it in the crucible and turn on the burning box. If this flint and steel works. Apparently, we can see temperature from the Whaler mod. The ceramic crucible has a really low heat capacity, so it heats up super fast, and the cinnabar already boiled and took us with its vapor. We shall try again, this time using way less fuel so that the fire will stop earlier. And here you can see the liquid mercury. However, from the purification from cinnabar it lost 2/3 of its mass, so it now can't fill a bottle. To use the castings, we need some tools. After procuring ourselves some bronze plates in the old way, we can now do some toying with the gregtech anvil. Depending on where we place the items and where we hit them, we will get different results. And don't worry about the waste, we will melt it down. And now that we have all the parts, we can make the first tool, a pair of pincers. Next we make the tool which will give a purpose to the pincers, a chisel. The chisel is used to engrave shapes onto molds. We shall have 1 mold for long rod and 1 for plates. Now let's test everything by making some plates and rods with the best ratio. We throw some ingots in the crucible. We throw some fuel in the burner. And we pitch it on fire. With so much stuff inside, it will now take a long time for the crucible to heat up. However, with enough time, we will reach the melting point of bronze. And, once it is liquid, we can pour it into the castings next to the crucible. And thus obtain plates and rods at the best ratio. If we do not want to hurt ourselves nor wait for the parts to cool down, we can use the pincers. And to stop the burner from heating the metals up to the boiling point, we can shout down its air intake with some dirt. Now that we have a lot of cheap bronze plates, we can afford to make many double-layered plates in the anvil, which we shall use to make a boiler, so that we can finally enter the steam era. To use the steam, we are going to need machinery such as an engine or turbines. However, the engine and turbine will only turn steam into motion. We need a machine to actually do something. Let's start with a rock crusher, so that we can turn terrafirma minerals into gregtech ones. Now that we have it, we only need some more burning boxes. We are going to make them out of enver due to math reasons. Enver is an alloy of iron and nickel. So we have to place iron and nickel inside a crucible and reach the alloying temperature. Unlike TFC's crucible, with the GT1 we can melt down different things at once and they won't mix into trash. However, we have to be careful at the various temperatures and metal affinities. Because if two metals can mix, they will alloy as soon as the temperature allows for it. And now that we have the last parts, our collection is ready. In the next episode, we are going to put it to work. Bye bye.